Part 62. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 611. The gaze from a short distance away was particularly strong and lasting, and Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing were naturally aware of it. However, after the two of them looked at each other, one continued to sip tea slowly, and the other was doing work on his mobile phone. Both of them regarded the sight as nothing. Gu Jiantong looked at it for a while and couldn't hold it any longer. He took a deep breath and looked away. "Go, make me a cup of tea, cold brew." She told herself to be calm and not to rush, and that it was time to show off her connections and family-oriented abilities when she arrived in the international fashion town. At that time, Zhang Lingzi is a little star, so what if she is lucky enough to get a special invitation letter? She will have to obey the organizer's arrangements. At that time, she will let Zhang Lingzi see the gap caused by status. But when I saw Zhang Lingzi tilting her body to look at the mobile phone in Shen Yunqing's hand after the refreshing tea in her mouth, the man was afraid that the people around him wouldn't see it, so he deliberately turned the screen. He suddenly felt that his throat was on fire. Same. For people like them, it is self-evident how important mobile phones are. Even though she had a boyfriend before when she was abroad, she protected her mobile phone very tightly during that period. She couldn't even touch it, let alone look at it. Moreover, mobile phones are also related to personal privacy. Even couples who have received a marriage certificate sometimes guard each other against looking at their mobile phones. Shen Yunqing was able to show Zhang Lingzi his mobile phone. Needless to say, what kind of trust this represents. Although she had regarded Zhang Lingzi as her opponent before, she was confident that she would win in the end, and Shen Yunqing would only be in her pocket. This is the self-confidence she has developed through careful cultivation by the Gu family for more than 20 years. But now, the more I look at the state of the two of them getting along, the more bitter the cold brewed tea in my mouth becomes. Can she really Shen Yunqing away from Zhang Lingzi? Lu Zhengzheng and Fang Yao couldn't resist the temptation of the free buffet in the lounge, so they went hand in hand to choose what they liked. Tong Yu clicked on the entry hashtag Jianglingzi appeared at the airport hashtag that just appeared on the hot search. Lingzi, do you want? She raised her head and saw that the distance between the heads of the two people in front of her was less than 5 centimeters. Ahem. Zhang Lingzi looked up and pushed the extra bottles that Xiao Xiao had picked up when she went to get the drinks in the direction of Tong Yu. Tong Yu. She is not thirsty. You too, pay more attention. What should I pay attention to? Tong Yu. She gestured with her hand. This is the distance. There was someone at the scene who had a dark mind. After seeing it, he made up some stories about Zhang Lingzi and the male assistant. Although it's true, it's okay if you know this kind of thing. Zhang Lingzi. He coughed lightly and sat up straight, and explained in a low voice, I'm used to it. She couldn't learn the shyness and coquettishness of those girls when they were getting along in private before. If you want to be intimate, then be intimate. If you want to do something, just do it. There is no ambiguity at all and no time is wasted. As soon as she saw Shen Yunqing frowning at the phone, she subconsciously moved over to take a look. This habit has not changed for a while. Tong Yu nodded with a wooden face. I don't want to know how you get along in private at all. One more thing, I see that many people on the internet have posted airport Reuter, and the entry about your appearance at the airport has become a hot search topic. Do you think you should also take 2 pictures? At this moment, she really wanted to thank the marketing account that had previously questioned whether the invitation was fake. This move made many people silently pay attention to whether her artist would appear at the airport today, but it only increased the popularity. There are quite a few people who posted airport Reuters photos that were carefully edited and polished, but it was not as popular as Zhang Lingzi's post without a Reuters photo. How could she not be grateful for this? Zhang Lingzi took out her mobile phone and looked at the comments under the previously posted updates. She saw that many people had replied with words such as have retreated and wish everything go well. She secretly thought that she was quite good. Then exit and click on the front camera, click a snap, and take a selfie of yourself. He handed the phone to Shen Yunqing again and said, "Take a picture of your whole body for me." Tong Yu wanted to say something when she saw this, but saw that Shen Yunqing had already taken the phone very professionally and got up and left the seat, so she reluctantly went back. It is indeed the assistant's job to take photos and edit pictures of our own artists. However, these two serious assistants are still wandering in the sea of delicious food. Only assistant Shen, who has only been on the job for less than 2 hours, is left to complete this task. Item work. But when she saw Shen Yunqing even kneeling down on one knee with his mobile phone in hand in order to find a good angle, she still felt a little unsteady. Or else. I haven't had time to say I'm coming yet. All right. Zhang Lingzi, who had been posing for a while, immediately stretched out her hand. Let me take a look. How about it? It's okay, I think it looks good. Tong Yu touched her nose and shut up decisively. After a while, a prompt came out on the phone. Tong Yu clicked on the post that Zhang Lingzi just sent. She glanced at the selfie in front and looked at the other full-length photo first. I immediately raised my eyebrows. Suddenly, I thought of a sentence I once read that I thought was a bit hypocritical: only the person who loves you the most will discover your most beautiful appearance. This photo looks like it has not been retouched at first glance. It is just the original lighting, real and natural. It just has an indescribable beauty to it. Sister Tong, how are you doing? Tong Yu finally came back to her senses from the photo. I feel good. Except for the selfie in the front, it's a bit random, but the one in the back can make up for everything. Zhang Lingzi herself is even less modest. Fans are praising the filming. Tong Yu, that was taken by Mr. Shen for you. The rounding is what I took. Yes, everything you say is right. Tong Yu lowered her eyes to look at the likes and comments that had begun to increase rapidly under the Reuters photo. I found someone who is really keen. Has assistant Zixi been replaced? I feel that the style of the photo is different from before. There is no trace of retouching, but it is very beautiful. The collection has been saved. Please continue to maintain this style. Tong Yu looked at this comment and replied silently in her heart, this is a bit difficult. After all, Mr. Shen cannot continue to work as an assistant all the time. Zhou Lingyu was just happy to be on the hot search list, but as soon as she exited and refreshed, she saw the entry about Zhang Lingzi jumping up to her. His face suddenly darkened, and he poked the word Zhang Lingzi heavily with his finger. When I saw the Reuters message Zhang Lingzi had just sent a few minutes ago, I couldn't help but bite my back teeth. He looked at the assistant sitting beside him coldly. They are all a bunch of idiots, they can't even find an angle. The assistant in charge of taking photos and retouching was scolded so hard that he couldn't hold his head up. But the one who had the bigger reaction was Gu Jiantong, who saw Shen Yunqing taking photos of Zhang Lingzi with his own eyes. The cold brew teacup was placed heavily on the coffee table. There was a click and the bottom of the cup fell off. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 612. Please be prepared in 10 minutes, I will lead you to the boarding gate to board the plane. This flight is an exclusive international flight. It departs from the Imperial City Airport and flies directly to the Fashion Town International Airport. The whole journey takes 11 hours. There is a big gap between the local time and the Imperial City. When we arrived in the Imperial City, it was close to midnight, but the international fashion it's morning in town, please be prepared. Finally, everyone is welcome to take this flight. The entire crew will wholeheartedly provide you with the most considerate service. In the huge lounge, after hearing the indoor announcement, everyone stood up and started cleaning up. Lu Zhengzheng and Fang Yao also ran back with their stomachs a little bulging. They quickly packed up their belongings and checked them again. Sister Zixi, when I went to eat just now, I heard that we were sitting here. The plane is double-decker. I have never been to a foreign country and I have never seen a double-decker plane. Zhang Lingzi just asks Xiao Xiao to take off the makeup on her face. Anyway, the Reuters photos were taken, and she still had to fly for more than 10 hours. She didn't want to wear full makeup the whole time, so she would reply while wearing a mask, "Me too." As soon as he finished speaking, a chuckle came from the aisle next to him. A huge group of people walked over. Lu Zhengzheng looked at Gu Jiantong, who was surrounded by people, and frowned, but she only dared to whisper in a low voice, "What does she mean? Have never flown on a double-decker plane or been to a foreign country? Isn't it embarrassing? It's just because the family has money." Tong Yu patted her shoulder and said, "I don't care what others say, just do your job well." Although she didn't know why Miss Gu suddenly laughed a little sinisterly when she walked over, it was not something that little characters like them could comment on what someone in this position wanted to do. Lu Zhengzheng also knew that what Sister Tong said was true, and pouted, "Oh." Zhang Lingzi looked at Shen Yunqing, who was helping her pick up her handbag. "She's anxious. How do you think she knew your identity?" Shen Yunqing did not take off her mask in the lounge. Except for making a cup of tea at the beginning, she has been sitting in a low profile since then. To be honest, she was a little curious to be recognized like this. She should have asked the crew for the list. Given her family background, she will have some small privileges. I said, "Let's go." She had only 8 words to respond to this kind of behavior, abuse of privileges for no reason. Even if she knew that the person sitting next to her was Shen Yunqing, she still had to hold her breath. You can also laugh at her for not having been abroad. 10 minutes passed quickly. From the lounge to the boarding gate, the crew will personally guide you, and they are the first to board the plane. Ling 11, "Mr. Shen, here are your boarding passes," Tong Yu said, and handed over 2 light blue boarding passes that looked like works of art. "Zheng and I are in the business class at the back. See you after we get off the plane." This time, the guests with invitation letters were all first-class seats, and each person was also given a companion space. If you are bringing more people, you will have to pay for other cabins at your own expense. Now that Shen Yunqing is here, Tong Yu consciously gives him another first-class seat. Asking means being sensible. Zhang Lingzi took both boarding passes and said, "See you when we get there. Have a good rest on the plane. The same goes for you too, especially you. There will probably be domestic and foreign media waiting outside when you get off the plane. You must be in the best condition. Rest assured." After Tong Yu finished explaining, she took Lu Zhengzheng and the others to the business class boarding point next to them and lined up to board the plane. Zhang Lingzi looked at the seats shown on the boarding pass. Although they were in the same cabin, they were not next to each other. Gu Jiantong took the boarding pass given to her by the assistant and handed it directly to the crew. "Hello, Miss Gu, you are in first class seat 5, please come with me." "Why isn't it number 3, I like sitting in that position." Logically speaking, the airline understands the preferences of its big customer and should not make such a stupid mistake. "I'm sorry, Miss Gu," the stewardess in charge of receiving her said with a smile. "Because this is an exclusive flight, the seats are customized by the organizer of the ceremony. The welcome bouquets and cards have been placed in advance, and we have no right make changes. Besides, seat 5 is right behind seat 3. You can ask the passenger in seat 3 if he or she would like to change. We have no right, I hope you can understand." The people who were aware of the queue behind Gu Jiantong heard the conversation in front of them and silently glanced at their boarding passes. "Be particular." Zhang Lingzi also looked at her own and raised her eyebrows. Okay, although Gu Jiantong was a little unhappy, she was not well educated enough to make a fuss over a seat, so she could only nod with a cold face and walk on the plane. After a few more people entered, Zhang Lingzi handed over her boarding pass. "Ms. Zhang, Please come with me. Okay, taking the handbag handed over by Shen Yunqing, Zhang Lingzi boarded the plane. First class cabin is on the second floor. Gu Jiantong just picked up the flowers placed on her seat, which was a bouquet of green roses that she liked. As soon as her expression softened, she looked up and saw Zhang Lingzi walking behind the stewardess. When she saw Zhang Lingzi walk to the small box in front of her and stop, one of the green rose bouquets in her hand was immediately broken. She was still thinking about changing seats when someone came, and was confident that no one would reject her. But why is it Zhang Lingzi? Want to change seats? Zhang Lingzi thanked the stewardess and turned to meet Gu Qintong's murderous eyes. She Shiren picked up the bouquet placed on seat 3 and picked up the exquisite card placed on the bouquet to read. Unfortunately, I also like this seat. Gu Jiantong was so angry that he didn't even want to read the welcome card specially written for himself. Now that I have arrived in the first-class cabin, I want to take a look at the environment of the first-class cabin with my family. This first-class cabin is the most spacious one I have ever flown in. Look, here are the welcome bouquets and cards. The flowers on each seat are different. Well, the card is still handwritten. The organizer of the ceremony is so thoughtful. However, the phone needs to be turned on airplane mode, so I can't continue to live broadcast to my family. My family is waiting for me to get off the plane. I will be there as soon as possible. I will start the live broadcast, but it will probably be midnight in the Imperial City by then. I hope you are still waiting for me. Gu Jiantong was sulking when he heard the chattering behind him again, and suddenly he felt relieved. What's the noise? I don't know that first-class cabins need to be quiet. Zhen Nanan was about to introduce the facilities on the first-class seats again, but when he heard the sound, his hands shook in fright and he immediately closed the live broadcast room. Zhang Lingzi turned a deaf ear to the movement behind her. After reading the welcome card handwritten by Mr. Kazuo, she put it in her handbag and began to carefully explore the functions of the buttons around the seat. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Shen Yunqing coming up, so he paused his exploration and waved, "Come here." When someone came over, she handed over the bouquet she had put aside and said, "Take it." Her love for flowers is average, and she feels dizzy after smelling them for a long time. Now she has finally waited to take over. So after becoming assistant Shen Yunqing became the first male assistant in the first-class cabin to receive a bouquet of flowers. Zhang Kaiwen looked at the person sitting across the aisle, frowned and looked at it a few more times, then looked at the flowers in his hand, and couldn't help but let out a light sigh. He thought it was either his agent or the assistant named Lu Zhengzheng who flew first class with Sister 11. It would be easier to talk about things between people of the same sex. How come a male assistant is following you? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 613. Hey, you. What answered him was the small partition that slowly closed without hesitation. Zhang Kaiwen sat on his seat with his mouth open, his whole body immersed in shock, and he didn't make a sound for a while. After all, he is also a popular youngster with the top level of popularity this year. Okay, how can a little artist assistant be more awesome than me? Shen Yunqing raised the partition and put down the bouquet in his hand after sitting down. The phone was still turned off at the moment. He took the time to deal with the work that he had not finished in the break room just now. This is the cost of taking a vacation abroad at will a few years ago. As for Zhang Kaiwen, who is sitting next door, who is that? It's not important at all. By the time the plane took off and flew smoothly through the clouds, Zhang Lingzi had almost finished studying all the functions in her small box. Then he turned his head to look at Shen Yunqing's position. It's not that far away. She doesn't need to shout loudly for the other party to hear her. Similarly, the assistant is in the same cabin as the artist, so it is convenient for him to listen to the instructions and special needs of the artist he is responsible for. In addition, there is also the task of accompanying and chatting to relieve boredom. After all, a flight that lasts more than 10 hours, even if everyone has a full set of audio and video equipment in front of them for entertainment, they cannot continue to watch for several hours. However, she had just taken off, and she had nothing to say, so she looked back and prepared to raise the partition. "Excuse me, Teacher Zhang." Zhang Lingzi looked up and recognized the person sitting across from him, who seemed to be Zhang Kaiwen's assistant. "It seems to be called Lele or something." Zhang Kaiwen's assistant Lele couldn't help but become a little nervous when she saw him. "What? I just noticed that the seat of Mr. Jiang's assistant is misaligned with mine, so I wanted to come over and ask if I could adjust it." Location. Zhang Lingzi didn't notice that the person sitting across the aisle from Shen Yunqing was Zhang Kaiwen. This change would indeed bring him closer. "Okay." She unbuckled her seat belt and said, "I'll go with you." Thank you, Teacher Zhang, I'm really sorry to trouble you." "You're welcome." Gu Jiantong was still sulking in his seat. Earlier, she learned in the lounge that Shen Yunqing was willing to work as an assistant to Zhang Lingzi, which was the first shock to her. The favorite of the flying international town on the international fashion town was also arranged to others. If she changed others, she would not be so angry, but it was Zhang Lingzi who was arranged in the seat number 3. This breath has been held from the ground to heaven, and it has not been released yet. Hearing the sound coming from the front, she subconsciously raised her eyes and looked over. Seeing Zhang Lingzi walking behind with someone, she couldn't help but follow him with her eyes. Walking to the small box where Shen Yunqing was, Zhang Lingzi knocked on the small partition in front of her. When the partition came down, the people inside turned to look over and whispered neatly, "Come on, I'll change your seat. I'm next to you." Shen Yunqing immediately picked up the mobile phone and the bouquet of flowers and stood up without any hesitation. The seat change was completed quickly. Zhang Kaiwen was testing the noise-canceling headphones provided to passengers on the plane. As soon as he took off the headphones, he heard the partition being knocked. When he put them down, he noticed the slightly proud expression on his assistant's face. He raised his eyebrows and asked, "What good happened?" "I changed my seat with Teacher Jiang's assistant's seat. If you have anything to do, you can just turn your face and give me instructions. Praise me quickly. Praise me quickly." Zhang Kaiwen was stunned for several seconds before he realized what was happening. He raised his hand and patted his head. "Why didn't you tell me before you changed?" Teacher Zhang agreed to let us change this, so that we can all be closer to our artists. Isn't this a good thing? It is indeed a good thing. However, he has not yet figured out why Sister 11, the new assistant who suddenly appeared, is pulling him so hard. Moreover, this person has been wearing a mask. He also wanted to see what this person looked like. Is it possible that he is so ugly that he cannot be seen by others? It will be lunchtime in a while, so I can always take off the mask and let him see what's going on. In the end, all this plan was ruined by my caring assistant. Forget it, I've changed everything. Zhang Kaiwen waved his hand tiredly. "Go back to your new seat and stay there." Following this, there were several more people negotiating to change seats in the cabin. Although the organizers arranged the invited guests meticulously and thoughtfully, they were more casual about the artists brought by the celebrities. But if both parties agree, then it's up to you to change positions. In this way, the two people who changed seats at the beginning were not so special and abrupt. When the seat-changing incident was basically over, a stewardess came over with an ordering tablet and began to provide ordering consultation services to passengers in a soft voice. Zhang Lingzi looked at the names of all foreign dishes on the tablet and chose to give up after a moment of silence. Her only experience of eating foreign food made her no longer trust her ordering skills. Some dishes obviously have good names and are pleasing to the eye, but the taste is vicious to her. And the portion size of each dish made her think that the restaurant was mainly for showcasing the plates every time it was served. "Let my assistant order it for me," he said, and handed the tablet in his hand to Shen Yunqing, who was across the aisle. Shen Yunqing took it over from Shan Ruliu. The stewardess waiting aside was stunned for a moment and continued to serve with a smile. Gu Jiantong, who was one seat behind and waiting to order, looked at the scene and couldn't help but take a deep breath. She strongly suspected that Zhang Lingzi did this deliberately to show her. When Shen Yunqing placed the order according to Zhang Lingzi's taste, the stewardess walked up to him in order with a tablet. "Just the same as what the gentleman ordered just now, plus a glass of red wine." "Okay." Zhang Lingzi heard Gu Qintong's request from the front, and had only one feeling about it: baffling. After placing the order, we waited for about a quarter of an hour before the meals were served one after another. Zhang Lingzi looked at the food placed on the small table one after another. The flight attendant would announce the name of each dish when it was placed. Although the names are unfamiliar, fortunately the food and taste are familiar. After the flight attendant left, she gave a thumbs up in Shen Yunqing's direction. It is not easy to find familiar dishes from a bunch of foreign dish names. But when Gu Jiantong saw the pile of stir-fried or stewed dishes in front of her, the portions were frightening and had nothing to do with elegance, plus the incompatible glass of red wine in the corner. His face turned green. Which celebrity can eat so much in one meal? And how on earth did Shen Yunqing choose these dishes that she was least likely to order from so many dishes? But even if you cry, you have to swallow the words you say. In the end, among the dishes on the table, only the glass of red wine was finished by her. At most, 1 or 2 chopsticks were used to touch the dishes, and some were not even touched at all. The stewardess paused obviously when she came to collect the plates, and Gu Jiantong turned her face away as if she hadn't seen her. "Ms. Gu, are you satisfied with today's lunch?" Gu Jiantong almost lost control of her expression. "Can't you tell if you're satisfied or not?" "Sorry, we will make improvements. Let me tell you, these dishes should be crossed off your menu. We will consider your request seriously." The flight attendant silently recited her professional qualities as a flight attendant, and walked to the seat in front of her while maintaining a painted smile. She still remembered that the meals ordered by the front and back seats were exactly the same. She thought she would be faced with untouched meals again, but when she saw the cups and plates that were almost all empty, she couldn't help but be stunned. Zhang Lingzi handed over the lightly tidied plate. Before the stewardess asked about the passengers' satisfaction as usual, she said, "Thank you, the food tastes very good." The flight attendant reacted, and the smile on her face suddenly became more sincere, and her tone became more excited and gratified. "Thank you for your like, and I wish you a happy journey." Hearing the change in tone of the flight attendant, Gu Jiantong said, "There is nothing left for her to miss on this plane, and she will never take it again next time." She swore. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 614. After lunch, Zhang Lingzi got up and went to the bathroom. When I came back, I saw Shen Yunqing holding the quick-drying pen provided on the plane. There was also an open notebook spread out on the small table, and he was writing something seriously. She couldn't help but asked, "What are you writing?" The next second, the notebook was handed to me. On the white paper on the left, there are 3 math problems neatly listed. It only took one glance to confirm that it was a bit difficult for her current level. Zhang Lingzi. People doing things. Did it for me. Well, I think you're a little bored. You can pass the time by doing this. You can also take a nap when you're tired from thinking. Zhang Lingzi, thank you for understanding me so well. Knowing that except for her regular rest time, it is basically difficult for her to fall asleep, especially now that there are so many passengers around. Unless her brain is really tired, she can naturally enter a light sleep state. You're welcome. Zhang Lingzi returned to her seat angrily with a notebook that could be called a hypnotic artifact, spread out the page of questions, and after carefully reading the questions, she began to draft on the blank page at the back. Gu Jiantong couldn't help but look away from the movie that had just been playing in front of him for a while, frowning and looking at the two people sitting in front. What are you doing? Write and chat? Resisting the desire to change seats, she tried her best to turn her attention to the movie in front of her, and saw another movement in front of her. The seat in front stretched out a hand to wave, and she watched Shen Yunqing leave her seat and go to Zhang Lingzi's place. She immediately sat up straight, and after waiting for a while to see the person who had not left, her face suddenly turned ugly. Pursing her lips and taking off her earphones, she leaned forward quietly as if she was masochistically masochistic. She wanted to hear what the two people were doing on the same seat. Front seat. Zhang Lingzi was tilting her head to watch teacher Shen, who had transformed again, correcting her answers. 2 more steps are missing. She quibbled, actually, I went through these 2 steps in my head. The implication was that I just didn't write it down. Be careful not to miss it next time. No points will be deducted this time. The results of it? That's right. Gu Qintong's expression gradually turned into blank. All of this, what and what? After finishing 3 difficult questions, almost an hour has passed. Zhang Lingzi closed the notebook on her hand, put away the small table, adjusted the seat under her to lie flat, and rubbed her temples. I'm really a little tired, I'll take a nap for a while. Shen Yunqing didn't reveal it when he saw it. He turned around, took off the blanket on the grid, and covered the people around him. Go to sleep. Zhang Lingzi glanced at him, gathered up the blanket, and closed her eyes. Shen Yunqing stood up lightly and walked out. After returning to his seat, he looked towards Gu Jiantong, who was sitting behind him, and saw her somewhat complicated expression. You. Hush. Gu Jiantong looked at the rising partition and swallowed the words back in his stomach with complicated emotions. With familiar people around her, Zhang Lingzi slept peacefully, but woke up a little later than she expected. When I got up, I happened to encounter the stewardess handing out hot drinks next to the seat. She asked for a glass of warm water and drank the whole thing soberly. Looking at the time, it was not yet 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Only half of the flight. The dinner ordering has begun. Shen Yunqing is still doing it for him. Would you like to eat less at night, more fruit? Gu Jiantong learned the lesson he learned during lunch and honestly ordered some of his favorite foods. After dinner, there is a midnight snack before the plane lands, which of course can also be called breakfast. Zhang Lingzi looked at the time displayed on the screen of her phone, which Shen Yunqing had just adjusted for her. 2 times, one is the familiar time of the imperial capital, and the other is the time of the destination. It was night in the capital at this time, but now, she opened the visor at hand, and it happened to be the sunrise. The gushing light dyed everything in sight with brilliant orange light, which was dazzling. Fan. I couldn't help but look at it for a long time. Although after waking up from modern times, she knew from the original memory and the information surrounding her that the world was bigger than she originally thought, this was the first time she experienced it personally. The world is so big, it is really necessary to see it in person. When the radio sounded, there was a slight commotion in the cabin. Zhang Lingzi couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Although the seat that could sit and lie down was indeed very comfortable, it was still an experience she had never experienced before after staying on it for more than 10 hours in a row. Happily, it's finally over. The bad thing is that you have to take another bus when you go back. Coming out of the cabin and seeing the bright sun outside, many people were still a little dazed. Sister Zixi. Zhang Lingzi raised her hand to respond to Lu Zhengzheng, who was waving wildly at her, and led Shen Yunqing to an open space to wait. Several people pushed their checked luggage and rushed over to join them. After counting the number of people and saluting in full, we started talking about our experiences on the plane and headed for the exit. Originally, there were already a lot of people in the airport lobby because it was hosting an international fashion festival. When they came out of the exit, it could be described as a sea of people outside. Behind you is the roar of planes flying from all over the world. In front of you is a stream of people. The red carpet in the middle is spread out and stretches far away. The major media on both sides have already prepared long-term and short-term weapons, and it is like another red carpet event. As soon as Tong Yu turned on her phone, she received a message from the organizer. Ling 11, the information says that the car that will pick us up will arrive within 15 minutes, and the license plate number is. Zhang Lingzi saw the car waiting at the other end of the red carpet, remembered the license plate number and nodded, "Let's go there." Looking at the many people in front of us walking on the red carpet and cooperating with the stop-and-go attitude of the major media, it is estimated that the entire process will be completed in a quarter of an hour. But there are also those who don't give face to the major media. Just when Zhang Lingzi was stopped by a media from China and temporarily stopped to take a photo, a team walked past behind her. Tong Yu and Shen Yunqing were guarding Zhang Lingzi on the left and right. They looked at Gu Jiantong, who was leading the way past them, and frowned. It shouldn't be her misunderstanding, it seems that her artist and Miss Gu really don't get along. Gu Jiantong looked back at Zhang Lingzi after passing her, and continued to stride forward. She doesn't need to cooperate with the media around her, it's just the media chasing after her to take pictures. Walking all the way to the end of the red carpet, there was already a car waiting there with its door open, and a good-looking security guard in a suit was guarding beside it. She was about to get in the car without thinking, when an arm suddenly stretched out in front of her. "Miss, please show me your invitation letter." The assistant behind Gu Jiantong held the mobile phone and looked embarrassed. "Miss. Give. Sorry, Miss Gu, the car to pick you up is at the back." Gu Qintong's face suddenly turned red. She turned around and glared at the assistant standing behind her. "Why didn't you remind me earlier?" The assistant was about to burst into tears. "I was just going to tell you." She wanted to remind her before, but she had to be given a chance to speak. "The passenger of this car is late, can't you switch the passenger of this car with me?" The security guard still blocked the car door with his arm. He glanced at his watch and replied, "Sorry, we have 5 minutes left for the guests of this car." The implication is that I am not late, you are the one who arrived early. Gu Jiantong. Zhang Lingzi hurriedly led his team to the end of the red carpet within the stipulated time, and saw the two sides still in a stalemate. Coincidentally, Fang Fang is an acquaintance. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 615. Tong Yu stepped forward to negotiate. As if he didn't notice the cold look from the eldest lady of the Gu family, he handed the well-kept invitation directly to the security guard blocking the car door. "We're not late, are we?" The watch scanned the special code on the invitation and issued a pleasant mechanical female voice, "Past verification." The security guard's stern expression suddenly softened. After looking at the information displayed on his watch, he stood sideways in front of the car door and made a gesture of invitation. "Ms. Zhang, please get in the car." Gu Jiantong stood motionless, her face was so hot that it hurt, her hands hanging by her sides were clenched into fists, and the veins on the backs of her hands were visible. Tong Yu gritted his teeth when he saw this. It was obvious that he was not giving face, so what exactly was going on? There is no reason why our own artist would offend such a wealthy lady. I didn't explain it clearly before. "Miss Gu, look." Gu Jiantong suddenly turned her head and looked at Tong Yu. If she didn't vent her anger, she would explode. Sneered, "Who do you think you are?" Before she could say the word thing, Zhang Lingzi interrupted her with a cold voice, "Close your mouth if you can't speak." As soon as he finished speaking, there were several gasps of air around him. Tongyu was moved but helpless. There was really no need to offend this young lady for her sake. But Zhang Lingzi not only said it, but also did it. He walked straight to Gu Qiantong and said, "Get out of the way, don't you understand?" Gu Qiantong's eyes instantly turned red, more out of anger than in disbelief. She didn't expect that Zhang Lingzi would dare to talk to her like this in public. Shouldn't a normal person politely give her the car? Her eyes fell on Shen Yunqing, who was standing behind Zhang Lingzi. After waiting for a while, the man didn't speak. Is it so difficult to give her a step up? Why is the front not moving? Family members, don't worry, let's go around more. Anyway, the message says that the car to pick us up will have to wait a little longer. The camera swept across the end of the red carpet. Although it moved quickly enough, the sharp-eyed audience still saw the most conspicuous figures among them. It seems to be Zhang Lingzi, Miss Gu, and the long-legged handsome guy wearing a black mask. Do the three of them know each other? Sure enough, all the good-looking people gathered together. Wait, did Zhang Lingzi come to the fashion festival because of Miss Gu's favor? It's really possible. As Miss Gu, it's easy to bring someone here without any pressure. I have already realized that Zhang Lingzi really has an invitation letter. It turns out that she is trying to get Miss Gu. However, in the self-proclaimed discussion, some people found that something was wrong with the atmosphere. Am I the only one who feels that there is a bit of tension between Zhang Lingzi and Miss Gu? I just wanted to say it, and I was almost taken into the ditch by the barrages in front of me. Where does Zhang Lingzi get the capital to compete with Miss Gu? Move the camera over there a little more, let's see which guess is correct. Miss, the assistant standing next to Gu Qiantong was the last person to give him the steps, and he whispered softly, "The car to pick us up has arrived." Gu Qiantong subconsciously moved her eyes over, and sure enough she saw that a large commercial vehicle of the same model had stopped because there was a traffic jam in front, and the security guard who got out of the car was walking over. Before the other party dared to ask about the situation, she gritted her teeth and spoke loudly, "Let's go." As she walked forward, she heard Zhang Lingzi's voice behind her, "Yunqing, Sister Tong, let's get in the car." "Shen Yunqing, you guys go up first, and I will put your luggage first so that you can pack it when you arrive. Then be careful not to hit your hand." Gu Qiantong's shoulders couldn't help but tremble after all. The assistant who was following him quickly lowered his head and pretended not to see it, but he was already complaining secretly in his heart. "I thought I had won the favor of the eldest lady this time, but it took a lot of effort to win over another life assistant, and I was able to follow the eldest lady to this international fashionable town for a chic trip. But now she can be sure that her personal assistant's misfortune began when she met Zhang Lingzi and Mr. Shen in the airport lounge. Why can't you just have fun when you're here? Why do you have to get in between those two people and make yourself unhappy?" But she only dared to think about it in her heart, and even in her dreams she did not dare to say it out of her mouth. The space of a business car is very large, even if 6 people sit in it, there is still room. The driver's seat and the co-pilot's seat are respectively the driver, and each car is equipped with a bodyguard. When the vehicle starts driving, a partition is raised between the front seat space and the rear compartment, leaving enough privacy for people. Space. Tongyu took out the drinks from the small refrigerator in the car and shared them with everyone. When she handed them to Zhang Lingzi, she was still hesitant to speak. But before she could make up her mind to ask, Lu Zhengzheng broke up the somewhat silent atmosphere in the carriage. Sister Tong, I heard that the international fashion town we are going to later was built less than 100 years ago. Is it true?" Tongyu glanced at her helplessly, and saw that Zhang Lingzi was also a little interested. She didn't want to talk more about what just happened, so she nodded and did her best to educate everyone. International Fashion Town was originally just a deserted place located at the junction of the two countries. The islands are not connected by land, and the road we are taking now was forcibly filled in later. Lu Zhengzheng and Fang Yao suddenly let out a loud roar. Tong Yu took a sip of water and continued, Mr. Albers, who held the first international fashion festival, first bought the ownership of this desert island, and then spent all his assets. It took nearly 30 years to build this as a fashion city. People are actually used to calling it a small town. Its area is no smaller than a city. Its economic pillars are the fashion industry and tourism. As long as it is a well-known international brand, it can settle there. Proud of the fashionable city. This city has brought immeasurable wealth to the descendants of Albers. The largest, most famous, and richest family here is the Albers family. Having said this, Tong Yu paused and looked at Zhang Lingzi. Also, Mr. Casso's wife is a direct descendant of the Albers family. She guessed that Zhang Lingzi would not think of asking about this, so she might as well ask about it herself and give her artists a vaccination. Zhang Lingzi, yeah. Tong Yu. Isn't this reaction a bit too bland? Forget it, if they are really lucky enough to see Mrs. Albers, they are lucky. If they can't, there is no loss. Besides, it is an unexpected blessing to be appreciated by Mr. Cassuo. People must learn to be content. After silently comforting herself, Tong Yu cut off those unrealistic fantasies in her mind. It has been almost 10 years since I last came here. At that time, I was a temporary assistant. At that time, we were arranged to stay in Qinghai Castle on the outskirts of the town. It was located on the seaside. I remember that the scenery was pretty good and we could see the sea from the room. I just didn't know if we would stay there this time. As soon as she finished speaking, she saw Xiao Xiao pointing out the window. I saw it, is that it? Tong Yu subconsciously looked over and nodded when she saw the familiar building. Yes, I still have a photo with this background. As he said that, he saw that the car he was sitting on showed no signs of slowing down and flew past the gate of Qinghai City and continued to drive forward. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 616. Tong Yu looked at Qinghai City, which was rapidly retreating. She blinked and changed her words from Shan Ruliu, it seems that our residence this time is not here. Other people in the carriage, yeah. The car continued to drive forward along the spacious avenue. Slowly, no one in the car made a sound, and everyone looked at the scenery outside with interest through the car window. Lu Zhengzheng looked at it and made a questioning tone. Why do I feel that the further forward I go, the lower this building becomes? You are not an illusion, Tong Yu smiled and patted her head. Didn't I say before that this is a completely artificial town, and the Albers family is naturally located in the center? With their family's manner it radiates outward from the origin, and the buildings become taller as they go outward. Have you ever thought about the reason? Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing looked at each other, thoughtfully looking at the increasingly low, but increasingly sparse and spacious buildings on the street outside. Lu Zhengzheng couldn't think of anything and asked his friends for help. Fang Yao hesitated for a moment and expressed his guess. Is it true that the more central it is, the earlier it was built? Then as the city became more and more prosperous, the buildings also expanded outward little by little. In order to accommodate more people make buildings taller and taller. Tong Yu's smile widened a bit. Fang Yao knew that he had guessed correctly. At that time, you could visit the outside of the Albers family manor, and I went there with my colleagues at that time. The buildings in their manor only had 3 floors at the highest, but they covered a very wide area. We spent a whole day just to visit them. It's half a circle. The most valuable thing here is not how high it is, but how much land it occupies. I don't know if I'll let you visit it now. Then if we are still allowed to visit, can we go and have a look? Tong Yu didn't say anything too harshly, if the International Fashion Festival is over and we still have some free time. Yeah, Lu Zhengzheng and Fang Yao clasped their hands together excitedly. The car seems to be stopping. As Zhang Lingzi spoke, she turned to look out the window and saw a building that was almost 8 or 9 stories high and looked quite ancient in appearance, standing not far ahead. When Tong Yu saw the name of the building clearly, he almost stood up from his seat. It's Chongxiao Tower. Sister Tong, don't be excited. Lu Zhengzheng hurriedly took her arm. Is there anything special about Chongxiao Tower? Chongxiao Tower was the venue for the last International Fashion Festival, Huafeng Grand Ceremony. Tong Yu was a little stunned when she explained the confusion to everyone. I didn't expect that this time it would be open for occupancy. The car stopped slowly beside the rockery spring at the entrance of Chongxiao Tower. There are only a lot more media around here than at the airport before. Soon, the car door was opened, and before getting out of the car, the flashlights were already connected. There were even live entertainment reporters holding microphones, using their own languages, exaggerated expressions and tones, shouting as they walked towards the side. Let's see who will live in Chongxiao Tower next. I saw the Huazhu logo on the body of this car. It should be a star from Huazhu. The car door has been opened. Let's wait and see. Tong Yu, who was sitting near the car door and was about to get off. Although she is not the target of the media's expectations outside, she is already a little weak at the moment. Looking back to see Lu Zhengzheng and the others who were also stunned, I felt a little comforted. She is not the only one who suffers from stage fright. The bodyguard gentleman standing in front of the car door stretched out an arm and said, Ms. Zhang, the destination of this trip has been reached. Please get out of the car. Several pairs of eyes suddenly fell on Zhang Lingzi. But before she could make a move, Shen Yunqing, who was sitting next to her, stood up and got out of the car first, then turned around and stood on the other side of the car door. Zhang Lingzi glanced at him, straightened the folds on her clothes briefly, walked to the car door, glanced at him again, and got out of the car neatly. No one helped. No one could even see clearly who was getting out of the car, and the flashlights connected together first. Only after Zhang Lingzi took several steps forward facing the dazzling flashlight did the media react. Who is this? The model at the finale of Yun Chan's show some time ago. Oh, I remembered it. I heard that she only walked in that one show and became Yun's brand ambassador. Some time ago, the global spokesperson of Shanyu's Haiheng was officially announced. I collected a photo that looks like her. Although I don't know her, she is very beautiful and aura, and the person walking beside her is an assistant. She looks like a knight guarding the queen. It's not easy to get into Chongxiao Tower. Don't worry about anything else, it's just a short walk. Just seize the time and shoot as hard as you can. Zhang Lingzi was already prepared for no one to recognize her. After all, in China, she only gained some recognition in the past 6 months. Not to mention this is my first time abroad. I didn't expect that the people around her knew quite a lot of information about her. Although there were many people, there were no people blocking the way for interviews. It's just that the distance from the car door to the gate of Chongxiao Tower is less than 100 meters. Apart from the sound of voices, there is only the sound of the shutter being pressed continuously. At the same time, the latest fashion information from major media is also rushing to spread to all parts of the world. Zhang Lingzi appears in the international fashion town. The international fashion town Kongxialo welcomes the first star from China. Her name is Zhang Lingzi. Major news headlines accurately caught the attention of people who were paying attention to the International Fashion Festival in the first time. Domestic. Zhang Lingzi actually appeared in an international fashion town. Does this mean her invitation letter is genuine? He also emphasized that he is the first Huazhu star to live in Chongxiao Tower. Is there anything special about Chongxiao Tower? I look at the background in this photo. It's just a building that's not that high. I would like to share with you some popular science here. The closer to the center of an international fashion town, the lower the floors. The park-like manor in the middle is where the owner of the town lives. Chongxiao Tower is not special. To put it another way, it is considered to be in the second ring road. I am following the live broadcast of the little rich woman Nana. She has also been sent to her destination, which is the 45-story Qinghai city. Just now she was showing off that she could see the sea from her room. Wow, sea view room. As mentioned above, the international fashion town is originally an island. Being able to see the sea proves that this is the outermost area. There are a lot of media outside Chongxiao Tower, but the Qinghai city where the little rich lady Noonan lives is much cleaner. Well, you taste it carefully. Zhen Nanan was browsing online discussions with a frown. When he saw the call from Zhang Yao, he rolled his eyes and answered it. A somewhat panicked voice suddenly came from the phone. You guys took the plane together, why are you living in different places? It's all arranged by the organizer. You ask me, who will go? But I advise you to delete your crappy post quickly. Have you seen the information just released by the authoritative media in the fashion industry? It's about Zhang Lingzi's move into Chongxiao Tower, not who Zhang Lingzi accompanied. Moreover, I specifically asked when I checked in. Only those who received a formal invitation would have such a big invitation. The heavier the weight, the bigger the ranking. So many media can still accompany Zhang Lingzi to deceive. Can you please stop fooling yourself? The call was suddenly hung up. Zhen murmured and threw the phone on the bed. Looking at the figure on the TV who had already reached the door and was still being swarmed by the media and taking pictures, a trace of envy flashed in his eyes. Chongxiao Tower, does it mean to soar straight into the 9-layered clouds? Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 617. A door apart. Outside the door is the hustle and bustle of thousands of people pursuing it, while inside the door is the tranquility of mountains and flowing water. Elegant and distant Guqin music flows in the space. Amidst the music, a girl wearing a Chinese ancient-style dress comes gently with lotus steps. Lu Zhengzheng and the others, who were still looking around curiously, suddenly behaved themselves subconsciously. Miss Zhang, please. Zhang Lingzi glanced at the bodyguard in black who had brought them all here. He bowed and turned to leave. It seems that the handover is complete. The bodyguards in black are only responsible for sending the arriving guests to the arranged accommodation. Even if this stage of the work is completed, the next step is for the girl in front of him to take over the task of entertaining them. Miss Zhang, please come with me. The room we have arranged for you in Chongxiao Tower is Sankongliu, which is room 6 on the 3rd floor. The girl led the way while speaking in a calm voice. Ms. Zhang and your team have come all the way, so you can rest for a while. If you have any private plans such as traveling, meeting friends, etc., you can use the intercom phone in the room to notify me first. During their stay, I will call you to provide you with the most convenient and comfortable service. The elevator reaches the 3rd floor. Walk to the door of Sankongliu's room, and after opening the door, the prepared keycard was handed to Zhang Lingzi. The girl bowed slightly and said, I wish you all a pleasant stay, and I won't disturb you. Zhang Lingzi glanced at the green nameplate pinned to the girl's heart. Thank you, Miss Wang. Wang Lu's smile widened again. You're welcome. Lu Zhengzheng saw that the person was about to leave and quickly said, our suitcase. It will be delivered to you soon. Lu Zhengzheng breathed a sigh of relief. That's good, that's good. Her mobile phone charging cable was stuffed in her suitcase. After a day of tossing around, the battery of her mobile phone was already running low. As soon as the others left, her chatterbox opened up. When I saw this building outside before, I thought it was just an antique building outside, but I didn't expect it was also inside. Couldn't all the carved beams and paintings be real? Sister Zixi, I can take a photo and send it to my family, only in the hotel. I want to show it off to my parents and my brother. Zhang Lingzi had just stepped through the door with one foot. She turned to look at Lu Zhenzhen's starry eyes and waved her hand to express her casualness. Speaking, he led Shen Yunqing through the door first. This Zhangxiao Tower is indeed well done in imitation of ancient buildings, but the carvings and patterns cannot stand a closer look. On this journey, to her, the few ancient calligraphy and paintings hanging in the corridor were of interest. Besides, I lived in a house like this in my last life, so I have long been used to it. By the time Lu Zhengzheng started snapping pictures and successfully used up the remaining battery in his phone, he was the last one to step through the door of Sankongliu. After seeing the interior clearly, he couldn't help but open his mouth and say, "Wow! Why was I wasting time in the corridor just now? I should take a picture here more." "Okay," Fang Yao walked over, closed the door and pulled the person in. "Sister Zixi just assigned a room to us. Let's share a room. I will take you there. I just saw that there is something in the drawer of the bedside table. There are several types of charging cables, see if any of them can work with your phone." Lu Zhengzheng immediately followed Fang Yao obediently. "Charge it before you can continue to take photos as much as you want." In the master bedroom of the suite, Zhang Lingzi had already walked around the room where she was going to stay, and finally stopped in front of the tea table on the balcony. She somewhat suspected that this room was not prepared for her, but for someone who was still checking the facilities in the room. Then he reached out and picked up the tea leaves prepared by Zhangxiao Tower and looked at them. "Have you brought any tea?" Shen Yunqing was checking the light switches everywhere when he heard the sound and hummed softly, "I brought some for myself to drink, and a few boxes that can be used as gifts." When Zhang Lingzi heard what he said next, she couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Not bad, consider it. Putting down the tea leaves, she was about to go out to see how other people were doing, when her cell phone on the table next to the bed rang first. "Come. Whose call is it? Chang Ning and the others are here too." "No." Shen Yunqing turned off the bedside lamp and picked up the phone. "It's Mr. Kazuo." This call came on time. She just had time to take a breath and call just in time. Taking the phone, he simply sat down at the tea table and answered the call. "Mr. Kazuo. You shouldn't be busy now, right? Rest in the room." "Haha, I just took this time to call you. How are the arrangements for the rooms in Zhangxiao Tower?" Zhang Lingzi suddenly made a guess. "Did you arrange it?" "Haha, yes, I think you would prefer buildings with Chinese characteristics." "I really like it." "It's fine if you like it, but I'm too busy today and really can't get away otherwise. I'll ask my assistant to pick you up and come to my place to take a look at the dragon robe I mentioned before. The grand ceremony is coming soon, it's understandable. I'll be available whenever you are free." "Okay, then it's settled. I will try my best to make time tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, and we will meet. Waiting for your news." "Okay, take a good rest first, see you later." Hang up the phone, Zhang Lingzi looked up and met Shen Yunqing's gaze. Although she didn't turn on the loudspeaker when she answered the phone just now, the room was so quiet that she believed that Mr. Kazuo's voice was heard by Shen Yunqing. He raised his hand and patted his forehead lightly. "I seem to have forgotten to tell you that another important reason why I can come to this grand ceremony this time is to help Mr. Kazuo walk a show. Dragon robe catwalk. Well, it is indeed a dragon robe, but I haven't seen the real thing yet." Zhang Lingzi stood up, thought about it and asked, "When the time comes to go to my place, do you want to see it?" "Yes," Shen Yunqing nodded without hesitation, "it would be better if you are in the front row." The doorbell rang. "The baggage delivery staff has arrived." Among the luggage of the 6 people, Zhang Lingzi undoubtedly had the most luggage. Everyone else has 1 box, but she has 4. Just moving the suitcases to their respective rooms, Lu Zhengzheng hesitated for a moment. "Well, Sister Zixi, Yao Yao and I are going to sort this out. It is their assistant's job to sort out the artist's clothes, but now there is still an assistant standing here. You two sort out the clothes and jewelry when you go out and put them in the cabinet outside. We will sort out the rest ourselves. Lu Zhengzheng pushed two of the boxes out again. Shen Yunqing moved the remaining two boxes to the open space between the tea table and the bed, looked up to his side. Zhang Lingzi, open. Lu Zhengzheng and Fang Yao packed her luggage before she came here. Even she herself didn't know what was in the two boxes. Shen Yunqing opened the lock of the nearest suitcase at hand, and the suitcase popped up instantly. Zhang Lingzi, I've only been out for a few days, how much have they stuffed into me? Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 618. Everyone who has checked in one after another is basically packing their luggage. Some do it themselves, while some assistants do it for them. Scenery blueprint. Zhang Kaiwen turned on the TV in the room, and while listening to the sound coming from the TV, he opened the suitcase placed beside the bed and silently started packing. Lele opened the door and walked in. Brother Kaiwen, I heard. No need to ask, Zhang Kaiwen interrupted, I just saw it on my phone. Sister 11 doesn't live here. Lele scratched the back of his head and said, basically, the people on our plane were all arranged to stay in Jinglang Guantu, and some were staying in Qinghai City, which was further away from the center of the town. I didn't expect that teacher Zhang actually lived in Chongqing. Xiaolo. At the end of the sentence, he sounded a little sighing. Zhou Lingyu, who came with her own artist, is still on the front line. Compared to Zhang Lingzi, who has only filmed TV series, she has already entered the film industry, but this time she also lives in Jinglang Guantu. I really don't know how teacher Zhang managed to surpass Zhou Lingyu and live in the inner circle within the inner circle for the first time at the International Fashion Festival. Lele couldn't figure it out, and Zhou Lingyu couldn't figure it out even more. The large amount of luggage he brought was being packed by two personal assistants. Zhou Lingyu plugged in the charging cable on her mobile phone and was still frantically scrolling through the news about Zhang Lingzi moving into Chongxiao Tower that was being reported on major domestic platforms. Why on earth is she doing this? Zhou Lingyu's agent packed up her luggage and came out of the room. Hearing Zhou Lingyu's free speech, she sighed helplessly, still reading, tell me, besides making you angry, what else can reading these messages do? Zhou Lingyu raised her head and did not hide the unwillingness in her eyes. Do you think I can be convinced? I still have a high-end luxury endorsement, and this is the third time I have come to the International Fashion Festival, and I have a good stay this time. Just a little bit better than last time. But as for Zhang Lingzi, she just got the spokesperson of Shanyu's Haiheng. Although this brand is still quite luxurious in China, it is still too young to be promoted internationally. Yun is just a brand ambassador. According to this standard, she should live better than me. You have to go out, why should you live in Chongxiao Tower so close to the center? The agent had also seen the news on the internet and frowned, but you should have also seen that you are not the only one who is doubtful on the internet. The number of people who raised this question must be hundreds of thousands if not millions, but she did live in it. Yes, this is a fact. No one dares to joke about this during the festival. Although at other times besides hosting international fashion festivals, as long as you can afford the money, you can live in even the outskirts of Albers Manor, let alone Chongxiao Tower. But now, it is classified as a place exclusively for invited distinguished guests. It is really not possible for anyone to enter if they want to. Even VIPs can only stay in the place that has been arranged. You can't stay wherever you want, otherwise it will be a mess. Zhou Lingyu has come here 3 times and naturally knows what the agent said, but she just doesn't want to admit it this time. He gritted his teeth and said bitterly, it must have something to do with Zhang Lingzi's departure, it must be. Seeing her reluctance, the agent couldn't help but hold his forehead with a headache. Don't just stare at Zhang Lingzi. Think about Wei Minmin. The jewelry brand she endorses has a higher international status than you. It's a higher level, so I won't stay here this time. As a result, Zhou Lingyu sneered, "She has a very good relationship with Zhang Lingzi, isn't she? I heard that she is still called Sister Zhang Lingzi in private, and one first-line sister is called the second-line sister. Fortunately, she can call her out. Now Zhang Lingzi lives in Chongqing beyond her. Xiaolo, I don't believe she doesn't feel uncomfortable." The manager knew that the person in front of him would not be able to get her back for a while, so he simply took her mobile phone over and said, "Don't think about it. Take off your makeup and take a rest. After lunch later, we have to go out to meet this person, a representative sent by the sub-brand. This is business. Although the brand will take extra care of its spokespersons, if the spokesperson's performance is not satisfactory to the brand, the spokesperson will also be replaced. Talented people emerge from generation to generation, and the same is true in the entertainment industry." Zhou Lingyu also understood this reality. She reluctantly suppressed her resentment and unwillingness and got up to wash up. Wei Minmin, who had been speculated about Zhou Lingyu's psychological activities, not only did not feel uncomfortable, but was still talking to Zhang Lingzi on the phone with great interest. "Sister 11, have you finished your work over there? That's almost it, by the way. Where do you live?" "Jinglan Guantu. This time almost 70% to 80% of our invited guests from Huazhu live here, and some live in Qinghai City. As far as I know, there are no more than 5 people in our circle who live in Chongxiao Tower. Among them are you, Sister 11. That Miss Gu also lives there. There are also 2 international best actors and actresses, and the only one who has received top endorsements is Xie Tianwang." Zhang Lingzi heard her on the phone. "There are many treasures here. You are really well informed about this information. Hey, I'm so popular, there's nothing I can do about it." Zhang Lingzi was so amused by this self-promotion that she couldn't help laughing. That's true. She, who lived in Chongxiao Tower, didn't even know who was flying over on the same plane at that time and who also lived in Chongxiao Tower. Of course, she didn't pay attention deliberately. The distance between Jinglan viewing map and Chongxiao Tower is not far. "Sister 11, do you have any plans for the afternoon? If not, can we make an appointment to go shopping? I have been here several times before, both for participating in activities and for free travel. He is definitely qualified to be a tour guide. Aren't you busy? I made an appointment with the brand tomorrow, saying that I would like to relax on the first day. It's just that the brand believes that relaxation means taking a good rest at your residence, but Wei Minmin's relaxation means going out and going shopping with friends. It's just that there's no need to explain it so clearly." Zhang Lingzi thought for a while. "I don't have anything to do today. According to what Mr. Casso said on the phone just now, his appointment will only be tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, and it will definitely not be today." "Then it's settled. Why don't we have dinner together at noon? I also know a few restaurants that are particularly delicious." Zhang Lingzi, "Okay. Then I'll call you when I'm almost there, Sister 11. Well, see you later." Zhang Lingzi had just hung up the phone, and when she turned around, she saw Shen Yunqing also just ending the call. "Did Changning call you, or is it Wuju?" "Wuju, they took a later flight and will have just landed." Zhang Lingzi walked towards him. "Then do you want to go over and meet them?" Wuju decided to come on the spur of the moment. Originally, Zhang Lingzi was planning to bring Changning and Yunyi with her this time, but since Wuju was also coming, and Changning could be regarded as Wuju's apprentice, she assigned the 2 of them to Wuju. "Feel over there." Well, although Wuju didn't say it, he rarely goes abroad. If he comes this time, there will probably be people from the Changkang sect at the grand ceremony. "Then go ahead. Min just called me and asked me to go out for dinner and shopping later." Although they couldn't have the first meal together, Zhang Lingzi thought about it and thought it would be better if the meeting between the 2 parties was not mixed up. Even if she didn't look at the internet, she could tell from Tongyu and Wei Minmin outside that her popularity was a bit ridiculous. After all, appearing in an international fashion town and staying in Chongxiao Tower were superimposed. You will definitely attract a lot of attention when you go shopping. This has no impact on her, but it is not suitable for Shen Yunqing. Before the people from Changkangmen show up, Wu decide would be better to keep a low profile. Be safe. Same to you. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 619. Wang Lu received an internal call from the San Kong 6th room. When she learned that it was not the invited Miss Zhang who was going out, but the assistant next to Miss Zhang who wanted to travel alone, she remained calm and said, "Now we will arrange a vehicle for Assistant Shen." "How many cars does Assistant Shen need?" "It's good if it can seat 4 people." "Okay, the vehicle will arrive at the side door in 10 minutes and wait Assistant Shen, just remember to tell the driver your room number." Zhang Lingzi thanked her and hung up the phone. When she turned around, she heard Tong Yu ask in confusion, "Mr. Shen wants to go out alone. He has personal matters to attend to." "Let me tell you, I thought." Tong Yu silenced her voice as she spoke, choosing to keep it in her heart and whisper it quietly. She thought that Mr. Shen did not hesitate to come as an assistant this time just because he was too attached to his own artist. Turns out she is really narrow-minded. "Min Min will come over to me later and go shopping together. Which of you wants to go with me?" As soon as Zhang Lingzi finished asking, she saw Lu Zhengzheng and Fang Yao raising their hands quickly. Tong Yu waved her hand, "I won't follow you," and yawned as she said, "I'm getting older, so I'll stay and have a good rest today." Zhang Lingzi looked at Xiao Xiao and his assistant who were still packing a box full of makeup tools. "Xiao Xiao, where are you?" "We're not going either," Xiao Xiao shook his head. Although she worked as a celebrity stylist, she was a hidden otaku. Without a job, she preferred to stay in her room and fiddle with things like eating. "Sister 11, if you go to UA, can you bring me a 333 color lipstick? I just found out that Xiaozhuang forgot to bring it." Assistant Xiaozhuang lowered his head and apologized softly, "I'm sorry, it was my negligence." Zhang Lingzi still has no idea about the major makeup brands and lipstick shades. Hearing this, he nodded and asked Lu Zhengzheng to write down the brand and shade number in the memo on her phone. "I'll give it to you when I get back." The first person to go out was Shen Yunqing, who had changed his attire. The previous outfit was photographed by the media a lot because she walked with Zhang Lingzi on the red carpet. To be on the safe side, it would be safer to change to another outfit. The mask was also taken off. In the past, I didn't want to be too high profile in front of the media, but now it doesn't matter whether I wear it or not during my private trip. Wang Lu was waiting at the door of the elevator in advance. When she saw the people coming out of the elevator, she couldn't help being stunned for a moment. The person in front of me is probably not Assistant Shen who wants to use the car. After all, she has never seen an assistant who is more outstanding than a star. With such a demeanor, there is no way she would not want to become an assistant. Wouldn't she make a good debut? However, she was very sure that there was no one like this among the people who stayed before. Even if she had only seen this face once before, she would never forget it. While hesitating, the other party stopped in front of her. When Wang Lu looked over at herself, she even felt a little embarrassed. "How can I get to the side door?" Just after suppressing the feeling of embarrassment, Wang Lu composed herself and said, "Are you, Assistant Shen?" "I am." It's actually true. With thousands of horses racing in her heart, Wang Lu could barely maintain her composure. "I'll take you there." "Trouble." "You're welcome." Wang Lu said, turned around and led the way, with her back to the person, and couldn't help but twitch her face. She thought that working in Chongxiao Tower, she would receive many famous celebrities on a daily basis, and she had already learned to treat everyone with a normal attitude. But now, she found that she still had little knowledge. Not long after Shen Yunqing left, Wei Minmin called Zhang Lingzi's cell phone again. Hang up, Zhang Lingzi waved to the two people who had already prepared for the trip. Let's go. Wei Minmin's car was parked at the side entrance of Chongxiao Tower. Zhang Lingzi saw Wang Lu again, who came to help guide the way, and saw that the girl looked at her with a somewhat complicated look that could not be concealed. As soon as I thought about it, I understood. Wang Lu watched Miss Zhang and her two female assistants leave in a car, and then stood there quietly for a while. She didn't know why, but she just felt that this Miss Zhang and the assistant Shen who just left were a good match. Wang Lu, what are you thinking about? Asterisk. Zhang Lingzi brought two assistants, Lu Zhengzheng and Fang Yao, and Wei Minmin brought one. After getting in the car, the two parties first greeted each other, and then Wei Minmin started chatting. Sister 11, I heard that you brought a male assistant with you this time. Why didn't you come with you? She also heard that this newly appointed male assistant directly passed over his seniors Lu Zhengzheng and Fang Yao and followed Sister 11 directly into the first-class cabin. Sigh, it's just that she didn't get to sit on the same plane and didn't get to see what this male assistant looked like, and why he was so valued. I was extremely curious. After hearing about it, I was still thinking about it. I wonder if Mr. Shen, who was left in the imperial capital, would be jealous if he found out. Zhang Lingzi could tell by looking at her expression that she was thinking about something messy, but before she could explain, Lu Zhengzheng and Fang Yao, who were sitting in the back row, couldn't help but burst into laughter. Zhang Lingzi, my assistant's surname is Shen. Wei Minmin didn't react at all for a while. Until a few breaths later, she suddenly took a breath of cold air and said, heavy, heavy. Zhang Lingzi reached out to hold her chin and kindly replied in the affirmative, it's Shen Yunqing's Shen. Wei Minmin finally gave her mouth to her, and subconsciously rubbed her chin against Zhang Lingzi's palm. Then she leaned back and said in a dreamy voice, it turns out you can still operate like this. I've learned it now. Zhang Lingzi didn't ask her what she had learned, but directly asked herself the question she was most concerned about at the moment, where will we go to eat later? It's a very famous couples restaurant, but don't get me wrong. It's not just for couples. It's opened by a couple who have sworn to never marry. The man is a local and the woman is from China, so their dishes are a fusion of the two places. The dishes are more in line with the tastes of us Chinese people. Anyway, I always check in every time I come. After speaking, Wei Minmin paused. Actually, there are also many couples coming to check in. Sister 11, you and Mr. Shen will also come. You can come alone. Well, let's talk about it when we have time. It was dinner time, so the two of them didn't do anything special when they arrived at the restaurant. However, the two owners of the restaurant obviously knew Wei Minmin and specially arranged a more secluded position for them. The food he ordered was served quickly. Zhang Lingzi tasted it and found that it was not unparalleledly delicious, but some of the dishes did taste very fresh. How is the taste? Good. Moreover, the atmosphere in the restaurant is also very good. The owner of the restaurant has explicitly prohibited disturbing guests at other tables while dining in the restaurant. Therefore, other customers who happened to be eating in the restaurant just looked at them a few more times, even if they happened to recognize them. And didn't just run over and ask for autographs and photos or anything like that. Sister 11, come. Seeing that Wei Minmin was in high spirits, Zhang Lingzi cooperated and took a group photo with her. The agent said that I was out shopping and took some photos to post on the news. Sister 11, can I post this one? I will remember that. Before leaving, Tong Yu also told Zhang Lingzi similar words, ate me. Forwarding it can be considered as sending it. Ding dong, ding dong. Zhou Lingyu squinted her eyes and asked the makeup artist to put on makeup. She stretched out her hand when she heard the sound. "Give me the phone." The manager unplugged the charging cable from his mobile phone and was about to hand it over. When he saw the content pushed above clearly, he paused and said, "It's still entertainment information, don't read it." "Give it to me." Zhou Lingyu narrowed her eyes and repeated it. The agent had no choice but to hand it over to her. Wei Minmin v. Sweet Lunch Time with Sister 11, I Zhang Lingzi. Zhang Lingzi v. Forward. Snapped. The phone hit the table, and the hearts of everyone in the room trembled. The agent sighed silently in his heart. She knew it would be like this. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 620. Successfully arrived at the international fashion town, a group of invited guests, internet celebrities, and even ordinary tourists who came here for the famous place were all busy in their own way after settling down smoothly. Some people started working non-stop, meeting with all parties and keeping in touch with each other. Some people have already started to eat, drink and play around. Some also started live broadcasts in response to the requests of fans. Coupled with the competing reports from major entertainment media gathered in the international fashion town, people from all over the world who are unable to come in person can also use their mobile phones and computers to see the excitement of this international fashion festival before it opens. Of grand occasion. Live broadcast footage lingers on the streets of small towns, and you can inadvertently capture one or more figures that were previously out of reach. If the other person is not in a hurry and is willing to cooperate, you can even walk over and conduct a simple interview. Netizens are so busy browsing the real-time updated entertainment information, as well as the live broadcast rooms of bloggers on major platforms, that they can't stop watching. It can be called a fashion carnival. Zhang Lingzi and Wei Minmin went shopping after lunch, and met many people who were live broadcasting on the street. Some of them are casual one-person live broadcasts, which look amateurish at first glance. There are also anchors who bring their teams to the battle, equipped with all kinds of equipment, and stand in front of the fill light board and lens, and you can tell that they are professional as soon as they speak. When meeting a celebrity or a passerby with good looks, a staff member from the team will take the initiative to communicate, ask if it is convenient for an interview, and mention how popular the live broadcast room is currently and how many people are watching online. In short, the point is that a simple interview will be beneficial to both parties. After all, no one is willing to do something that is not beneficial. When I came to the last festival, there were not so many people doing live broadcasts. It feels like the number has doubled this year. It's like a swarm of bees came here to get together. Wei Minmin was quite interested when she was stopped on the street for the first interview, but when people came over to negotiate one after another, she felt a little numb. If I had known this earlier, I would have just disguised myself before going out. Seeing another person walking over, Wei Minmin was just about to ask her assistant to go over and negotiate for a polite refusal, when she heard someone shouting at the door of the fashion palace they were about to go to. "It's the eldest lady of the Albers family." Suddenly, the people who were broadcasting the live broadcast within a radius of 100 meters were stunned for a moment, and then they reacted and rushed over at a sprint speed of 100 meters. With so many people, only the fastest runner can occupy the front row. Zhang Lingzi took Lu Zhengzheng and Fang Yao, who were experiencing this kind of battle this time, and took a step back. Seeing someone running too fast, they almost knocked the bag from Wei Minmin's hand, so she quickly pulled her over. The 5 people looked at the bustling square in front of them. In less than a minute, it was almost half empty. There were only people like them left there who were just out shopping, and there were still a few people who had not come back to their senses. Wei Minmin clenched the bag in her hand and watched as the entrance to the fashion palace transformed into a large supermarket waiting for uncles and aunties to shop for the new year. She couldn't help but opened her mouth. As for it, Lu Zhengzheng followed closely behind her. "This is too exaggerated." "Fang Yao, What the person just said seemed to be the eldest lady of the Albers family. The Albos family is the one Tong you mentioned on the road, the actual owners of the island we are on now. Then it's not too much of an exaggeration to say so. Although many people rushed past at once, there was a vacuum around the luxury car parked at the entrance of the Fashion Palace. Because the bodyguards who have been prepared and experienced have been lined up in the human wall, firmly protecting the luxury car in the middle. Everyone could only hold their cameras high and point them in the direction of the car door through the crowd. Sister 11, there are so many people. Wei Minmin frowned as she looked at the scene, a little embarrassed. Are we still going in? She never expected that her schedule would coincide with that of the eldest lady of the Albers family. I didn't expect that this famous name could attract so many people to live broadcast in an instant. But this fashion palace is a place that everyone who comes to the international fashion town must visit once. There is a saying that is very apt: if you come to an international fashion town and don't visit the fashion palace, it's better not to come. All well-known international brands are gathered here, and the entry barrier is extremely high. Even if they have to pay a high registration fee every year, no brand is willing to leave. Those who couldn't get in were waving their money and trying desperately to squeeze in. Let's just say that Hua's Hu, and currently Yun, founded by Yun Chan, occupies a place in it. Although Shanyu's Haiheng has gained some international reputation, it is not yet qualified to settle in. This palace is a fashion landmark. People who have never been here are embarrassed to say that they understand fashion. Just as Zhang Lingzi was about to say, "It's okay if you don't come in," she heard Lu Zhengzheng remind her quietly, "Sister Zixi, the Yue lipstick that Sister Xiao Xiao asked us to help carry seems to be here." In such a big place, Yue only has one store. The one who answered this time was Wei Minmin, who smiled bitterly and nodded. "Sister 11, it's true that all well-known brands have one and only one store in an international fashion town, and they are all classics that can be passed down forever. Some of the storefronts are even better designed than those at their brand headquarters. In this case, everyone wants to go to the most classic store, and who would want to go to the same ordinary store? It's useless no matter how much you drive. Then wait a little longer and wait until the crowd has dispersed before going in." The crowd in front made some noise again. The few people standing there subconsciously looked over and saw that the door of the luxury car protected in the middle had finally opened. A pampered hand fell on the arm of the white-gloved bodyguard guarding the car door, and then the owner of the hand got out of the car gracefully. Although the sunglasses covered half of his face, his pursed red lips made everyone around him pause in their tracks as they subconsciously pushed forward. Fang Yao let out a light sigh. Lu Zhengzheng couldn't help but rub her eyes. Why does this guy who got off the car look familiar? Zhang Lingzi couldn't help but glance at her two assistants, and said in a helpless voice, "Gu Jiantong." Fang Yao, huh? Lu Zhengzheng, didn't I say that this is the eldest lady of the Albers family? Why did you become Gu Jiantong again? Zhang Lingzi, there are people in the car. The two of them scratched the back of their heads in sync. Sure enough, after Gu Jiantong got off, another beauty with long blonde curly hair got out of the car. After getting off the car, she waved to the live broadcast cameras surrounding her. It seemed that this was not the first time she had experienced such a scene. The two beauties walked into the fashion palace arm in arm and were escorted by bodyguards, and several live broadcast cameras quickly followed them. You can't just take photos of young ladies getting out of the car. Live broadcasting of young ladies coming to the fashion hall to shop for goods is much more exciting than simply taking pictures of the fashion hall. To achieve this in live broadcasting, everyone must know the traffic password. As the luxury car drives away, the door to the fashion palace becomes clear. The people who stayed in place started to move. "Let's go. Sister Zixi," Lu Zhengzheng couldn't help but shouted in a worried voice. She just suddenly thought that Sister Zixi and Gu Jiantong were not at odds with each other, and Gu Jiantong seemed to have a good relationship with the eldest lady of the Albers family. They were now standing on the territory of the Albers family. No matter how you look at it or think about it, this is a bit bad. Turning to face Lu Zhengzheng, Zhang Lingzi's eyes instantly understood her worry. Does this kid still have any misunderstandings about her?